Marvel.
We're going to talk about the impossible decision that is trying to cast for the Fantastic Four, which I really do think is, given what happened with the last two iterations of this, is probably going to be a very difficult process.
But I like the first iteration of it. That one was kind of cool, but then the second one was kind of trash.
Jessica Alba is good in that. Ian, I always forget, it's like Gogan or something. I forget how to pronounce that guy's last name, but he's good in that one. But basically the article says, a new rumor claims that John Watts' Fantastic Four reboot is currently casting the actors who will play the Marvel Cinematic Universe take on the characters. One thing about this is John Watts, I do want to mention him. He is the director. He got tapped to direct here, and he is the person who just directed Spider-Man. He directed Spider-Man Homecoming, Spider-Man No Way Home. So he's got a lot of hits under his belt, but a lot of people don't realize that this isn't going to be the same thing. When he was making Spider-Man movies, these were Sony properties, which means he probably had a lot more leeway with what was going in those movies because they are not as organized as Marvel, nor do they have as much of an agenda as Marvel does in their process. So the article, for instance, he might have, I don't know how much of a say he would have in the casting process at Marvel. He probably had more so at Sony. And when Marvel does this, they're looking, these actors are going to be on contract for at least 10 years. Most of these contracts,
10?
7 to 10 years. Like when they casted for the show Arrow and The Flash, they had to agree to a 7-year deal. To do that. So you're signing away 7 years of your life.
That's wild.
Assuming it goes that long. But for Marvel, I mean, it's not like it's like a television show is far more time consuming. Like if this is like you're signing away 10 years of your life, but 6 month chunks, and they can use you whenever they want you for promotional material. You're basically at their beck and call. You can work on other projects, but they're going to come first.
I wonder if actors would rather be in like a 10-year contract for a TV show, or if they'd rather be in a 10-year contract for like an action movie.
That I think that depends on
what they're doing.
Whether we're talking lead. Like I always feel like the people who got it best with these are like the people who played like supporting role characters, because it's less time intensive for their shoot days.
But they're getting exposure, but they can still do other projects.
And they're doing other projects, and they're still making good money to do stuff like that. I was reading when Stephen Amell got hired to do Arrow, that is, so he signs a contract for 7 years, and it's 18-hour days, 6 days a week. Every day and you get like for 9 months out of the year.
9 months, whoa.
And you get 3 months off, but that's like usually that's 2.5 months really.
And you probably still have to maintain like whatever body figuring.
He got hired because this dude was a CrossFit dude who looks like
which is like its own intensive time commitment, right?
So, and that's the thing, they have to constantly be working out. They're doing fight choreography, all this. This is all in not counting I think Marvel had a rule at one point that the men had to put on 20 pounds of muscle to play a character there.
Oh my gosh.
I don't know if that's still true.
There's this comedian who talks about like, all you young girls, like basically his like opening line is like, your daddy lied to you, you're not a princess, like you have to lower your expectations. But one of the things he says
it's a Bo Burnham song.
There's another guy who does it, and he says like, what you really need is a man who works hard, who comes home every night, who treats you correctly. I know you young girls are saying like, yeah, I want that. That sounds great, but can he also have abs? No. Men who work do not have abs. Men who work have an ab.
6 feet 6 inches, 6-figure income.
That's so funny. I just love that line. Men who work do not have abs. They have ab. But the thing is, like, men who like really work out and have lots of like, I feel like you have to go to the gym for like part-time job status here.
Yeah. I feel like they don't have a job.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, if you have to go to the gym 4 hours a day to maintain your body, like...
You can get that as a job, but it has to be your job. You have to be good enough to be a nutritional advisor.
Or maybe you're a trainer.
Or a trainer. That's a thing. But they're not going to date you unless you're... most of them tend to date people in the same field because there's a lot of commitment and work that goes into that. Like, you do not see... dudes in the gym with girls who are like average looking, and you don't see girls that get famous on Instagram for working out with dudes that are average looking unless they have a lot
to spend time together, you'd like have to be going to the gym. Like that doesn't work another way. So
it's just funny because some of the casting choices they had for this is they want John Krasinski for Reed Richards, and they want Emily Blunt for Sue Storm, and that doesn't jive with me.
That kind of.
She seems like she would be really unhappy doing that. Like that doesn't seem.
I
like
feel like they just want them both. Like now, since A Quiet Place, they're like a package deal.
Krasinski said he would totally do it because Krasinski comes off as one of those guys to me who's like,
I'm a Marvel nerd.
He was probably never a geek growing up, but he's like. But
I feel like he likes being a long-term character, like since Jim, and then he was that guy who's like a CIA
operative. He's Jack Ryan.
He's Jack Ryan, and that was like a long
season 2 where they pretended the problem in Venezuela wasn't socialism.
Accurate.
There's a really funny video where it's like, here's the big problem with season 2 of Jack Ryan, and they're like, it's the damn industry. It's really funny. But I would say Lena Headey for Sue Storm, possibly, or Stana Katic.
Well, the question is, are they going to keep her as a blonde?
I mean, they're not. They don't adhere to any of that stuff. I mean, realistically, one of these people will probably be, because remember they did. They did Michael B. Jordan in...
that storyline was so stupid because they said Sue Storm was adopted.
Yep, that was the only way they could do it. Well, that's what they're doing in a lot of movies now, so that they can race and gender swap characters. Like in that movie, The Ambulance, that's coming out, where Jake Gyllenhaal's he's my brother, and the guy, and it's like a black guy.
Foster brother.
And he's like... We're foster brothers. I'm like, oh, that makes more sense. But that's fine. That's a new character, so it doesn't matter. But when you do it to these characters, people get annoyed, and so it's Marvel, so that's likely what's going to happen. People will get annoyed. I would like to say that for Watts, he's going to have a harder time directing a Marvel product, because Marvel is the thing. Is the reason they hire underqualified directors is because really it's Kevin Feige making the movie, because he's the one in charge of all of the...
Who's Kevin Feige?
He's in charge of Marvel Studios. He's the one who outlines everything and basically has the game plan that keeps everything on track. So if they hire well-known directors who want more control over the property, that doesn't abide. So they tend to hire people, it's like independent directors with like one good... Chloe Zhao. Okay. A couple of good films under their belt, usually indie and smaller, but they don't have the pedigree to be able to have control over every aspect of what they're making.
So it's not exactly a territory dispute.
It's weird too, because they hired Sam Raimi to do Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, and he's absolutely a director with pedigree who can make demands if he wants.
Maybe that story is more complicated already, so they need someone who has more strength in their vision, I guess.
I think there was a story also that he wanted to do a Doctor Strange movie like in the 90s, so they brought him on to So
another good marketing moment.
Exactly. It's like it's finally made it happen. But then there's this story I want to talk about. The reason why this is funny for John Watts and why casting was so difficult is Josh Trank, who directed the 2015 Disaster. Basically melted down on it goes down in history as a legendary fall from grace for a director. It says, on August 7th, 2015, hours before his $150 million comic book reboot Fantastic Four opened at 3,995 North American screens, director Josh Trank mashed the self-destruct button. A year ago, I had a fantastic version of this, he tweeted in blind rage. And it would have received great reviews. We'll probably never see it today. That's the reality. Provoked by a review suggesting that Fantastic Four be studied, quote, in film school as an example of what not to do, the director fired off 138 vicious characters without so much as a reread to catch his typo. The responses were immediate. He had champions who praised the gall it took to slap back against the man. You don't get to work for these corporations. You're not going against the man. You are the man if you're working for these studios. It's art. I'm like, it's corporate art at best. It's still art, but it's corporate art.
Well, and when you sign your contract, you know that you are part of that unit. Yep. You're not independent.
You are not independent. So it's not 100. It's weird. It's like this is a lifelong discussion that will go on forever. Where art and commerce intersect. Right. So what can you do? It says,
well, and if he's part of the Marvel universe, he's directing one movie, but then there's other stuff going on.
And this wouldn't have been Marvel. This would have been Fantastic Four would have been Fox at the time, because Marvel had to sell off a lot of their characters in the 90s. The film rights to a lot of their characters. Okay. They just recently got it back because now Marvel has so much money. They just bought 20th century. Disney's like, we'll just take 20th Century Fox.
This is ours now.
We want them back. and somehow avoided any type of like what do you call it when for like a corporation, a monopoly, avoided any type of what's that called? It's not a monopoly. I mean, it is a monopoly, but what do they call that? Antitrust. There was no antitrust. They reviewed it, and we have reviewed ourselves and found that we did nothing wrong. It's okay. Let's start here. It says he had champions who praised the gall it took to slap back against the man and detract. Was that me or somebody else? It was me. I apologize. He had champions who praised the gall it took to slap back against the man, and detractors who thought the whole episode was maybe a little gauche. Drowning in a sea of notifications, Trank finally picked up the phone when his manager called. Quote, he was afraid of what was going to happen to me, Trank told me of the dizzying moment. I was messing with one of the most powerful corporations in the world. Trank was an obvious candidate to reinvigorate Fantastic Four for 20th Century Fox in 2010. The studio plucked the then 26-year-old filmmaker from obscurity to direct the micro-budgeted Chronicle, the story of three high schoolers who gain and are torn apart by superhuman power. Gave Trank the power to rewire the found footage. So it was like a found footage version of a superhero movie. So again, there's that term again. Plucked from obscurity, meaning we can control you. So this guy's career basically melted down after this because these tweets mean like he kept going back and forth with these people, and you're just not supposed to do that.
Right.
There's a lot of failure to be graceful in these industries. I understand because art is so close to your heart. Even if it's corporatized art, it's still close to your heart because it takes long hours and a lot of effort goes into making this stuff. So you're defensive. But for him, it seems more that the studio constantly interfered and made this awful movie out of it, like what happens with a lot. I was going to talk today about, it didn't really fit in with this story about there's a show on Hulu called Woke.
Yeah.
And there's this great piece, and in fact, I'll tell you guys about it. This show was created by a woman named Aisha Carr, I believe is her name. And the story in this article from the Daily Mail is basically, she was brought on to do a show that satirizes woke culture. It's about a black comic strip artist in San Francisco. So it's like both supposed to be satirizing both people who are woke and people who are anti-woke, like racist and anti-racist. And then as soon as they wrote 8 episodes, they thought it was even keel. It addresses both sides, and then the production notes come in, and they're like, you can only make fun of the straight white men. And then you know what they did when she's like, I like it this way? They fire her and they bring on a white guy to direct it. And then when the show's about to premiere, they bring in a black guy as like a figurehead and then fire him right as season 2 gets approved. So these studios you will never get away from meddling from these companies.
Right.
That was just the most recent example I could think of it.
It makes sense to me that the studios, on some level are always going to meddle. I also wonder if I don't know a lot about this story, but if you were to produce something and then they basically completely change it, would you as an artist want to sign your name to it?
Exactly.
Well, that's what they did to Zack Snyder, right?
Yeah, that's why the theatrical cut of both Batman vs Superman and the Justice League are almost unintelligible because the studio, his vision was a much longer movie with much more depth. There's an argument to be made that longer isn't necessarily better. A lot of people don't want to sit in the theater for 3 hours, right? But that was his vision that they hired him on for. But then they cut it down to about an hour, from about 3 minutes and 15 seconds in Batman vs Superman. Well, to about 2 hours and 30 minutes, and all this context is lost. So you go to the movie in the theaters, and they do this for financial reasons. They can get more show times in a day if they cut the time length of the movie down. That's
right. So like if it's a certain
they can just fit more
2 hours and 15 minutes, then you control. Okay.
So what you get is this unintelligible garbage that makes no sense, and then they release the director's cut, and you're like, wow, that actually makes a lot more. Maybe you like it, maybe you like it, maybe you don't, but at least it makes sense. Yeah. Right?
It's like a different product at that point.
Exactly. So now what they're doing here is I can already see this issue where one thing Marvel will do well is they'll probably cast fairly decently, if not politically correct, and they'll streamline the process. But I do believe that this new director will probably have to take a back seat the way that Josh Trank didn't find a way to do gracefully in his run with the Fox versions of these characters. So we'll see where this goes. It should be interesting, but studios will always be involved, and there's no way like I said, when art and commerce intersect, unfortunately, the benefactors always get the final say. And they're going off of studies and surveys and all sorts of corporate metrics that they run to try and figure out what they believe people want. We talked yesterday about Superman and Lois and how I feel that it's already taking like season 1 was incredible, and season 2, the start of it feels like they didn't pay attention to what made it work. We'll see. Like, that could be wrong, but yeah. So we'll see. Who'd you do for Reed Richards? I like Krasinski.
I kind of like that idea, but if they want to be funny and double book somebody, maybe Zachary Levi.
Ooh, they could that's actually a really interesting one. Good call. I think, him and Krasinski are almost the same face now too, because they're both they've both bulked up for their roles. So
really,
like they were both very skinny in their previous roles. He was very skinny in The Office. Krasinski was, and Zachary Levi was super skinny in Chuck. Yeah, so that's.
But the actress who plays as, is it Sarah, the Chuck's love interest?
Sarah Walker. Yeah, Yvonne Strahovski.
She was the Susan Storm, right, in the first movie.
No, was she?
She looks like it.
I'm going to look it up.
Brett's going to fact check me live.
She's awesome too. Yeah, she's another one who can absolutely pull off these roles, because she's done that type of stuff her whole life. She was in 24. That's what the other thing besides Chuck. She was in that awful 24 remake. I'm not. Do you know what year it was?
Nope. Let me search up.
I'm not seeing it. I don't remember her being in that, but I could just be like memory holing that. She was Dexter in the original. She was in the original Dexter series, and she also played.
It was Jessica Alba. My bad.
Yeah, I was like, what? I was like, I thought I was losing my mind there. So we'll see where it goes. But I think that could be an interesting. The casting will be that'll be an event where like they'll likely like release one cast member's name every time they cast one of the characters. So I don't know. Like I said, it's funny to see where art and commerce intersect in these billion-dollar properties, and the X-Men and the Fantastic Four are both billion-dollar franchises waiting to be mined once they release this stuff. So.
And then for Susan Storm, they should cast the girl that played as Liz from iZombie.
I forget her name.
Hold on.
As Liv from iZombie, right?
Liv.
Rose McIver.
Yes, thank you.
McIver. Yeah, she's good. Or no, honestly, the girl who plays Ally Machaca, the girl who plays. The thing is, though, is like when you're doing that type of role, there is unfortunately like a divide between a television level actress, what they consider to be a television level actress, and what they consider to be a movie level actress.
Well, she knows how to act in movies.
Yvonne Strahovski, the one you mentioned earlier, she's kind of broken that barrier a little bit. She does more movies these days, but in general, like I would think that they would go with somebody with more film credits, like more recent film credit. Who's the one who's in The Witcher? The new lady from The Witcher. Like I said, Lena Headey from Game of Thrones would be good as Sue Storm, though they might consider her. This is not me. This is them. Considering her
which girl?
The Cersei.
Cersei. Freya Allen.
The older one. Yeah. It might be Freya Allen. Season 2 of The Witcher. I stopped after like episode 3. So
yeah, because it didn't interest you. But if you watch the prequels before like the actual Witcher series, it makes more sense. Well, and I like the storylines more. The
goal is to make your movies so that you don't need to watch the prequels it's like I can watch the X-Files movie having never seen. You could watch the X-Files movies having never seen the X-Files and still understand what's going on.
Well, like I don't know. I just like Henry Cavill, and it's kind of sad that season 2 is meh.
Yeah, he's the best part of it, so that's okay.